forensic criminologist, Dr. Laura G. Pettler. Laura, great to have you on. And I want to talk about the motion that was filed this morning. It's your expertise, blood spatter. Let's talk about, and I'm going to boil down the defense's position. Here's what they said, is that SLED, which is law enforcement for the state in South Carolina, tested Alex Murdaugh's white t-shirt that he was wearing when he found the bodies. And it has some stains on it. And they said when they tested for blood, it was negative. However, they tested and did find Maggie's DNA. So the defense's position is, well, if there's no human blood on this shirt, then necessarily Maggie's DNA could not have come from those stains. So let's start there, and I'll have you break down that piece of it.
So, Ashley, I think that the defense is arguing that the DNA found that is consistent with Maggie Murdaugh is not forensically significant in this case, because they're saying that because the blood stains because the material on the shirt is negative for blood, that the DNA is, you know, maybe not blood, so therefore it's not connected to the event, is the way that I took it. I think that there's a lot to be said for the overall context of the shirt, because there apparently are transfer blood stains on the shirt, along with some type of what was believed to be spatter. So the transfer stains could be consistent with blood, could test positive for blood, could be consistent with Maggie, but then the other stains on the shirt may not be blood and may not be consistent with either Paul or Maggie.
So you have two different experts, and one of them is saying, I cannot render an opinion as to whether or not bloodstains on the shirt are consistent with backspatter from a gunshot. The other expert is saying the stains and the cuttings of the shirt are blood spatter, and that they are blood spatter from that incident. Where do you fall, or how do you weigh those against each other if a jury has to listen to that, Laura? What's your expertise tell you?
So, Ashley, I think that one of the things that needs to be brought up immediately is that one of the first thing that we always look at is the substrate. And so in this case, it's fabric. Fabric notoriously takes blood droplets and stretches them across fabric, so like it dilutes them. So it makes the samples more difficult or more challenging to test because they're smaller samples. Then if you do use leucocrystal violet or blue star or another enhancement type of a reagent, it can dilute those stains further, which a chemist would exactly have to tell you, because it's a bit outside my scope, but just based on my experience, it can dilute blood stains to where you could get a variation in response in the results of those tests. As far as where I fall, when it comes to a case where it's a matter of life and death, where we have dead decedents and we have somebody on trial for their murders, of course, the science has to be the guide. We are legally bound and guided by ethics, where we're ultra conservative, and that is also where I fall. So in my opinion, I would not have rendered an opinion in this case either, based on what I know so far, which is very limited.
And looking at that shirt and your experience, to me, it doesn't look like much blood. We know that he was with the bodies, according to the defense, trying to check on them, rolled one over. Right. I would think that your shirt would be literally soaked with blood.
It can be, but blood is one of those things that even when it's a small amount of blood, it can look like a whole lot of blood. So blood can be kind of deceiving that way. Possibly because of the color, and it's just sort of dramatic in itself. So when we see a person like what Alex Murdaugh said he did, he goes to the victims, he checks them for life, he's doing other things to try to see if he can help or render aid to the victims possibly. Yes, you would expect there to be transfer blood if it's wet. So if the blood is wet, it could transfer to his hands. If the blood is dry, we're dealing with a totally different situation. Dry blood doesn't transfer the same way wet blood does. So if there are transfer stains of blood on his shirt, on his hands, somewhere else on his person or on his clothing, I am asking the question, how is wet blood transferring to the clothing or to Alex Murdaugh versus was that dried blood. And according to what the state is saying, my impression of that, even though we have not yet seen any of the photographs or any of the material, it's consistent with, to me, with they're arguing that it was liquid blood. It was wet liquid blood that is transferred to Mr. Murdaugh.
It's fascinating to me. I know they have two different opinions at this point in time, and it's often battle of the experts. But when you talk, it is, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about the science behind it. It's very scientific. And so I think it's hard sometimes for myself, for viewers, to understand how you can have two different experts really at opposite sides of the argument to be presented for that jury to decide. So I must ask this, when you see a t-shirt and you hear all of this, are there any other tests that you think could be done, or any other ways that it could help determine what actually happened?
I believe the last time you and I discussed this, there were pictures of the shirt, and yes, we're seeing them on the screen right now. There are pictures of the shirt, and then we saw the shirt after it was cut up and tested. And in this motion, they talk about, there we go. So there on the screen right now, there's a picture of the shirt before the testing, and then there's a picture of the shirt after the testing with leucocrystal violet, which is a reagent that makes visible blood stains more photographic. Makes it easy to photograph. That's the easiest way of explaining it. So even though you can see them with the naked eye, you don't have to use anything to chemically enhance them. When you do chemically enhance them, sometimes it can diminish the samples to the point where they're diluted, or the sample is no longer able to be tested because it's what they call consumed. Testing consumed the sample, and there's nothing left for the defense now to test. So I think that's what the argument is, in part, between the defense and the state here. Is the defense is arguing we can't even test this to the court because the sample was consumed by the leucocrystal violet testing. And by the looks of the shirt, they tested 12 different areas. It wasn't just one test, it was 12. So that's definitely several different cuttings. They tried very, very hard and diligently to do a good job and test the shirt in all the different places that they could to confirm that there was blood on. But leucocrystal violet is a presumptive test, so they would go further than that to even confirm. And that's what they were trying to do, and I think that's where it became a little bit muddy waters for them.
That's right, and they did argue in a motion that there wasn't enough left that they could test. Let me bring in, I know we'll need to take a break, but I have to bring in our criminal defense attorneys, Jack Rice, Josh Schiffer. We know that juries are sophisticated, but listening to all the details and the fact that you're gonna have experts potentially on different sides of this argument, Josh, is that something that is difficult to present to a jury in a way that makes it understandable and makes them decide on your side?
100 billion%. Dr. Laura is absolutely the right person to exemplify that, because the information she just provided could be given to a jury in a boring, dry, unengaged way that puts everybody to sleep. But when you have an expert that has passion and real skill, their testimony, regardless of the subject area, is gonna be engaging. If you don't have a jury engaged, doesn't matter what the testimony is. You have to have them trust and connect with the expert if you want to use the expert fully. And in a case like this, where there are so many questions and there's so little available subsequent testing, it really will be, an expert will appropriately be used to plant questions in the jury's head.
Right, absolutely. All right, Jack, is there strategy or not in the filing of all the motions? I'm not saying that they're baseless, but the defense continues to file motion after motion after motion. We know that ideally the state's going to want to file a response. Is part of the strategy to file, and force them to respond while they're also about to try a case?
Absolutely. You want to see exactly everything that they have. And so sometimes you're pushing and you're needling and you're driving them to come back and respond with maybe just a little bit more. You're trying to understand what they have, the limitations to what they have and what they mean. But to echo what Josh just said, what Dr. Laura does so incredibly well is she has the ability to take something that's complex, and she's able to not dumb it down, but simplify it in just a way to accurately describe why a jury should care and why it will or will not matter. And she also kind of does it by staying above the fray. When she's against me, I hate that. I hate that so much. But she's awesome when she does it for me.
All right, thank you. I absolutely agree with you. I know we do need to take a break. Dr. Laura Pettler, thank you for joining us today to help explain and break it all down. And then we have Jack and Josh who will stay with us. And when we come back, we're going to get you back to Wisconsin for more live testimony in the antifreeze murder retrial. Stay with us.